Yes, again, can you please take your seats? I'll start calling names in a moment. Thank you. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? All right. Vivian, could you please sit down? Thank you. I said I was going to start naming people. Thomas, welcome. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Bienvenue. Thank you very much for coming to this event as of this morning, to the Aarde Energy Access Investment Forum. I'm very, very happy that you have all made the effort to come all the way to Nigeria. And for the Nigerians, thank you very much for hosting us. My name is David Lecoque from ARE. I'm the CEO of ARE, and I'll be guiding us through, I suppose, these short opening remarks. Before we start, for those that would like, there's a headset, French to English, English to French. Pour ceux qui parlent plutôt le français et veulent écouter en français, on a la traduction. Donc, il y a des casques là derrière. Si vous voulez, prenez le casque et comme ça, vous avez la traduction comme simultanée, n'est-ce pas? Voilà. Et bienvenue à vous également. I'm very, very happy also to welcome you today because we are seeing every year in the investment forum a growing interest in energy access, in distributed renewables, but certainly in the context of Nigeria, the attendance, well, the registration numbers are really, really growing and big, and people keep streaming in also online. More than 1,000 people online have joined us here today in the 300 people that we are. So let's get into it and let's go to the next slide. Thank you very much. So very briefly from my side, bit of setting the framework. We see the global status. It's quite clear. The idea of this forum, of the Energy Access Investment Forum, as the name says, is to catalyze partnership, to catalyze investment into projects and companies for electricity access in Africa and around the world. We all know these numbers, unfortunately, 675 million without power, $1.5 billion in weak grid areas, but it's that third figure that I always like to point out, because the third figure is that the majority of the market, or in people, more than 1 billion people, will be connected in the fastest and the least cost way through distributed renewable energy access, which is a very important evolution. And to make these numbers go away and reach 100% electrification, we know that we need $35 billion annually until 2030, which every time I hear that figure sounds a little bit impressive, I suppose, but we did some research recently. It happens to only be 20% of the turnover of Saudi Aramco, or equivalent to the GDP of the country of Estonia. So meaning it's a lot of money, but it's quite possible to do. So this is the reality. We can power an electrified population with just 20% of the turnover of one oil company. If we go to zoom in on the African side, we see that the DRE solutions can power up to 600 million, 567 million people in addition to today, mitigate more than 600 megatons of CO2, and not last but certainly not least, create more than 7 million green jobs in the continent that is certainly looking for a job creation. So here we are in Nigeria. We have the pleasure of noting the 100% access target set by the government in Nigeria, which we are extremely happy about, and of course keen to contribute as much as possible with distributed to that respect. We would unfortunately still note that we're not on track to meet the energy access target, the SDG 7. And so we certainly hope that with today we can make a difference. With the next 3 days we can make a difference, because indeed on the impact, if we go to the next slide, we see that the socioeconomic development, the green jobs, the climate change, the basically development of the country depends not only but also on having energy access and affordable clean energy access. So it is really important to, of course, come together and make it happen. Very briefly around ARE. So what on earth is ARE? For those of you who don't know yet, we are Alliance for Rural Electrification. We are a business association, actually the oldest, largest business association for distributed renewable energy in Africa and around the world. We federate more than 200 companies in the sector, of which around 150 companies are active in the mini-grid space, and around 110 companies are active in the standalone system space. For the ministry, we did some research. More than 50 of our companies are active or actively looking into the Nigerian market, because it's a very hot market, probably the hottest market at the moment. And lastly, we are a gateway really from industry to government, from government to industry. So we try to really play that role to help everybody in a public-private partnership. In terms of a few, you see our members there on the shaky slide. A lot of them are represented here today. Too many to enumerate, but thank you also to you for being there. In terms of few key pointers, I believe, from ARE, in the results 23, we'll not spend too much time, but just to share, we gained almost 50 new members last year. We had about 8,500 participants in our events, and in our main capacity, or one of our two big capacity building programs for technical training, we trained about 2,300 people in the last 2 years under the core initiative. A lot of new stuff are coming up in 2024. We come from a situation that in the last 4 years with ARE, essentially since this investment forum started again, we've grown ×4 on every KPI. And so now the ambition, of course, is to help the sector scale up further and grow and actually still reach those SDG 7 targets by 2030. We know that for this, we need to work on enabling conditions on policies, which is something we're doing on a daily basis with all our partners. And we know that we need to scale investment. This is why our flagship show is dedicated to investment. And how do we do that? It includes this matchmaking that we have between domestic companies, between international companies and investors. It means tailored instruments for the markets like the CEFA fund from AFDB, like Electrify from the Commission. And efforts also from industry itself, like the financier circle that we have set up inside ARU with more than 20 investors to really streamline things such as Forex and ESG criteria. We, of course, need innovation. A lot of things are coming on that, a bit of a scoop later during this event. And last, we need on the sustainability. It's good to build infrastructure, but it's even better to build long-term infrastructure. So for that, I mentioned already, ARE in the last 2 years has added a big component of capacity building. And on top of that, we are, as of this year, thanks to the German government GIZ, starting a new project called Probamed, for around lead-acid battery recycling. So really to have that full life cycle assessment. You see therefore policy, getting the industry and government together, getting capacity building together, and putting the sustainability at the center of all these efforts means that there's a strong growth. It means that we've gone from 5 to around 20 people. And I'm also very happy to give you a scoop that we are currently setting up our first regional coordinators. So we have the Africa desk already in Abidjan. We're adding 2 more in Africa and 2 that have already been set up in South and Southeast Asia, respectively. So in conclusion, we are united here today to catalyze partnerships, to catalyze investment into your companies, into your projects that will electrify the Nigerian population as well as the rest of the continent. And then all that's left for me to say is a big, big thank you to all the participants, first and foremost, and then to our co-host, the European Delegation to Nigeria ECOWAS and Get Invest, our long-standing partner, the REA Nigeria Ministry of Power that have helped us get this event on the road, African Development Bank, CEFA, the UNDP, CAS, TLP, World Bank, and then all the sponsors that you see on that screen that you can also see in the exhibition later on. So Schneider, Electrica, also VP, ADA, NG, and COMAP, all of which are sitting in the room. We have GDS International and ARES. We have Alan, Enos, Vida, Gaia, and IREC. So that's a lot of partners just to show the dedication to this market. And last but not least, a big shout out to our colleagues on the ground and National Association of Rayan. I don't know, Ayo, if you're in the room already with us this morning, but they've certainly been a very good partner and really our national counterpart here in Nigeria. So as a call to action, let's work together, let's have a great conference, and let me now pass the floor to Ms. Inga Stefanowicz, representing the EU Embassy here today. Thank you. Over to you, Inga.
Well, the view from this side of the room is spectacular. So, you can look back, the full room, give yourself a round of applause. So let me start from the part of the European Union. Honorable Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, ably represented here by Mr. Adedayo Olowoni, Chief Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister, Mr. Abariu, the CEO of the Rural Electrification Agency, dear colleague, the CEO of ARE, David Lecoque, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the EU Ambassador Samuela Isopi and the European Union Delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS to this year's edition of the Energy Access Investment Forum, organized by the Alliance for Rural Electrification and co-hosted by the EU Delegation to Nigeria. This event would neither be possible without GetInvest, the EU and ARE key partner in promoting renewable energy investments across the world. And boosting renewable energy investments in electrification is the reason we are meeting here today and during the next 2 days at this top sectoral Pan-African event. Our aim is to foster and forge business and investor partnerships for access to sustainable electricity, decarbonization of the sector and the economy, with the ultimate goals of economic growth, creation of jobs, and fight against climate change. According to the International Energy Agency, global clean energy investments have risen by 40% since 2020, reaching an estimated $1.8 trillion in 2023. But almost all of the recent growth has been in the advanced economies and in China. By contrast, other emerging and developing economies account for less than 50% of the total investment, despite being home to 65% of the world's population and generating about 1/3 of global gross domestic product. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, the European Union Global Gateway Strategy is our response to bridging this investment gap in critical infrastructure across Africa and other parts of the world. It stands for sustainable and trusted connections that work for people and the planet, to boost smart, clean, and secure links in energy and other sectors like digital, transport, health, education, and research, as well as global supply and value chains. A sizable chunk of the global funding, global gateway funding, goes towards an investment package for large-scale sustainable electrification programs on the African continent, with the goal of transforming the prospects of African people and helping their economies to grow. The package addresses 3 priorities. First, increasing the number of African people, businesses, and industries having access to affordable, modern, and sustainable energy services. Secondly, supporting investments in renewable energy generation. And thirdly, promoting energy efficiency. It is worth noting at this stage that we were happy to see Nigeria, alongside other African countries, join at the COP28 last year the EU-led global pledge on tripling renewable energy generation and doubling energy efficiency until 2030. And I think we can congratulate ourselves for this achievement. For the EU part, by 2030, the Team Europe Green Energy Initiative is to provide €3.4 billion in grants to support renewable energy, energy efficiency, the just transition, and the greening of local value chains, and result in access to electricity for at least 100 million people. Importantly, the EU funds are also there to leverage private sector investments, using guarantees and blending of grants and loans under the European Fund for Sustainable Development, EFSD+, and other instruments. As the scale of the needs much exceeds the resources of the donors or the fiscal space of the countries themselves. It is also through such modalities that the EU has contributed to launching a nascent renewable energy, and in particular solar market in Nigeria. We have partnered with Nigeria in the power sector since 2008, committing approximately 200 million euros in grants just until 2020, and leveraging further contributions from the EU development banks and other partners. Initially, we had focused on the whole range of issues, creating a renewable energy ecosystem and market. So starting with support to policy and regulation, capacity development of market participants, through access to finance in both public and private sector, and concrete investments in renewable energy infrastructure, installing around 30 megawatts of off-grid solutions that provide access to some 1.5 million Nigerians. Under our new program with Nigeria for the years 21-27, we have already committed another 100 million euros, primarily through innovative financing, technical assistance, and energy infrastructure projects, targeting this time around 400 megawatts of new on and off-grid renewable energy generation and reaching a minimum of 5 million Nigerians. Just recently, we have launched two critical projects with UNIDO, and I think they are here also with us in the room, to address the circular economy needs in the renewable energy sector, as well as to diversify clean energy sources, in particular by investing in small hydropower. You are going to hear more about them on day 3 of the forum when we concentrate on Nigeria. Our GIZ colleagues, also here, will also talk about our dedicated Nigeria window for investment pipeline development in the sector, as well as other initiatives that we are carrying out together in Nigeria, pushing the boundaries of innovation in the sector. By the way, you are also invited to stop by our booth in the exhibition space, and our colleague will greet you there. And if you would like to learn more about our project or meet with us and discuss further, you are most welcome. So on this note, let me leave you to enjoy the event, the information that will be shared here, and hopefully and naturally, the business that will be done in the next 3 days. Let me also appreciate again the Ministry of Power for the partnership across the years, the renewable energy, the Rural Electrification Agency, I'm sorry, other Nigerian public and private partners for their tireless cooperation, and last but not least, ARE for bringing this prominent event to Nigeria. I wish you successful deliberations, a pleasant 3 days ahead, and I thank you for your attention. Okay, you tell me. I can go, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Stefanowicz, for your inspiring words. Now I have the pleasure to turn to the Nigerian government, specifically the Ministry of Power, today represented by His Excellency Adedayo Olowoniyi, the CTA, to the Minister of Power. Mr. Adedayo, please come on stage. Thank you very much.
All right. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Power, who is unavoidably absent today because of other issues that he has to deal with in Abuja. And I would like to thank David from ARE for organizing this event in Nigeria. I believe this is the first time it's being held in Nigeria, so thank you very much. I would also like to thank the European Union, Inga Stefanowicz, ably representing the ambassador to the EU. I think we've had a lot of discussions and engagements, and I'm really happy with the partnership that we're developing with the European Union. So thank you very much, Inga. I would also like to recognize my brother, Abba Aliyu, the managing director of REA. I think they're doing a great job, and we expect that the future of distributed energy resources in Nigeria will be led by the REA, and I expect a lot of important developments in the near future from the REA. So I also like to recognize the MD of REA. So I will deliver the minister's speech. Welcome to the Energy Access Investment Forum 2024, organized by the Alliance for Rural Electrification in collaboration with the European Union and supported by Get Invest. My name is Adedayo Oloni, the Chief Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister of Power, and on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, I would like to profoundly thank everyone in attendance, particularly the major players across the energy landscape, industry regulators, government agencies, delegates, financiers, development partners, entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, panelists, and participants. I am truly honored to welcome you to this forum, where we have the privilege of highlighting the myriad of opportunities within Nigeria's energy landscape, which boasts lucrative and sustainable business opportunities. As a testament to this, the Federal Ministry of Power recently launched the Nigerian Power Sector Investment Opportunities Guidelines 2.0. The resource highlights some of these opportunities and outlines the regulatory and administrative processes you would need to follow to invest in the power sector. The Federal Ministry of Power, along with its departments and agencies, are crucial in driving reforms for universal energy access in Nigeria to create a sustainable and attractive sector that unlocks investment opportunities. We have achieved demonstrable progress through our successful initiatives and ongoing policies. To illustrate this impact, permit me to highlight just a few key activities. The Nigeria Electrification Project. The federal government of Nigeria, through the Rural Electrification Agency, in partnership with the World Bank and Africa Development Bank, recently concluded the $550 million Nigerian Electrification Project. The Nigeria Electrification Project, NEP, is a private sector initiative of the federal government of Nigeria that seeks to bridge the energy access deficit by providing electricity to households, MSMEs, educational and healthcare facilities in unserved and underserved rural communities. The project achieved about 63 megawatts and 1.1 million connections by deploying mini-grids and solar home systems. Leveraging on the success of the Nigeria Electrification Project, an additional $750 million follow-on facility through the World Bank Distributed Access through Renewable Scale-Up, DARES project, is about to commence. DARES seeks to increase electricity access to 2.5 million people by deploying solar home systems, mini-grids in households, MSMEs, including educational and health facilities throughout Nigeria. These facilities represent the federal government of Nigeria's willingness to embrace the active participation of private sector players and to have a stake in developing Nigerian power sector. In addition to this, one of the things that we also from the Federal Ministry of Power would like to encourage is the fact that we do not want mini-grids development to be solely based on grants. We believe that there's going to be the commercial viable mini-grid opportunities and the non-commercially viable mini-grid opportunities that require different type of capital. And it's actually important for the local developers and international developers to understand what type of capital needs to chase which types of projects. And this is actually the only way we're going to be able to electrify 95 million Nigerians that do not have access to energy. And we do not believe that it's only the grant funding that will be able to drive this level of investment. I think the second point that I want to make regarding the mini-grids is also the fact that we do not see the cost of mini-grids coming down fast enough in Nigeria. Potentially, this could be due to lack of scale or economies of scale from the procurement process. And as investors and as developers and development partners, we would like to ensure that as you drive this whole investment process, that we look at how this entire investment also helps to drive down the cost of connection for mini-grids and also to increase the economies of scale to improve better procurement processes. Another key project from the federal government is the Presidential Power Initiative. In 2019, the government of Nigeria and Germany signed an agreement to improve the power sector. The agreement birthed the Presidential Power Initiative, PPI, which seeks to modernize, rehabilitate, and expand the national grid by investing in Nigeria's power sector electricity value chain. In November 2023, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz witnessed the signing of an accelerated performance agreement to expedite the implementation of the Presidential Power Initiative to improve Nigeria's electricity supply. In the last 3 months, 6 projects located in Okene, Kogi State, Amukwe in Delta State, Potoskom in Yobe State, Akpo in Abuja, Ihobo in Edo State, and Ajah in Lagos State were commissioned under the pilot phase of the Presidential Power Initiative. The inauguration of these projects marks a significant milestone in Nigeria's quest to enhance its energy infrastructure. These projects, which aim to increase Nigeria's wheeling capacity by 335 megawatts, represent a commendable achievement in bolstering the nation's power supply. However, amidst these successes, the journey to bring these projects to fruition was challenging. Our teams have encountered various obstacles from logistical complexities in project coordinations to navigating regulatory frameworks. Yet, through meticulous planning, innovative solutions, and unwavering dedication, we have overcome these challenges and completed the pilot phase of the project. For us, the next phase would then to go into phase 1, which requires us to rehabilitate about 15 brownfield substations and build 22 greenfield substations to drive electrification on the grid. I know this is off-grid, but to eventually electrify the whole of Nigeria, we also understand that grid generation and grid supply of energy must be improved, and also to be able to absorb future renewable energy onto the grid. Another action that the Ministry of Power has taken has been the National Integrated Electricity Policy and Strategic Implementation Plan. We call it the NIPSIP. It's a policy process. And we actually just had an event last week with the Africa Development Bank as a next step, as a part in the process of developing the policy. The government is currently developing an overarching policy and strategic implementation plan, which is crucial in solidifying Nigeria's path towards a sustainable and robust electricity sector. The policy plan is designed to provide comprehensive framework for the nation's electricity sector. This signifies concerted effort to address long-standing challenges and chart a sustainable path in Nigeria's electricity industry. The journey towards formulating this policy has not been devoid of obstacles. This process involved extensive consultations with the public, intricate policy analysis, online and physical sessions, synthesizing different viewpoints, and navigating the political landscape that we do have in Nigeria, where different people have different opinions on how the electricity value chain should be developed, the policies that we're looking at in the future. Nevertheless, through a collaborative effort and the ministry's commitment to consensus building, these challenges are effectively being addressed in real time. We do expect that this policy process will continue for another 2 to 3 months, and we expect to be in a situation to finalize a policy document which will drive sustainable energy in Nigeria by September. As part of the policy process, one of the key items the Honorable Minister is very, very strong on is local content policy for the power sector. This policy intends to promote local content development in the power sector and support local manufacturers in exploring the potential synergies between foreign expertise and local ingenuity. The policy will prescribe an obligation to buy these locally manufactured products to ensure sustainability. A substantial portion of the ministry's success is due to the harmonious and productive relationships it sustains with its global and local partners, such as the European Union, the Alliance for Rural Electrification, the UN Sustainable Energy for All, USAID, UK EAIF, World Bank, and AFDB, and other development partners, and GIZ as well. We are grateful for the support so far. We are open to further collaborations and support to improve and increase energy access, innovation, and sustainability in the Nigerian power sector. I would briefly like to spotlight the federal government of Nigeria's recognition of the need for adequate liquidity in the Nigerian power sector. This recognition will catalyze the much-needed investment across the value chain, introducing a cost-reflective tariff for a segment of the market and liberalization of the meter market. This ensures a clear line of sight for investors to recoup their investments in the sector, and I am bold to say the federal government of Nigeria is committed to ensuring a viable and bankable power sector. With this, please permit me to rest my speech and enjoy the rest of the event and have fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring intervention and indeed for highlighting a lot of the big evolutions and big opportunities indeed that are here in Nigeria, also under the steering of the ministry and the REA. Before turning to the panel, I have a quick announcement where is around our Renewables for Impact campaign that is supported by our partner Get Invest. So before we start that panel, we wanted to very briefly share a demonstration of the impact that distributed renewables can bring. And as people say, a picture states more than 1,000 words. These are pictures from people and companies in the audience. And so that's the reason for this campaign is really, again, to stress what we are talking about. In the last few years, I think we talk a lot about investment, we talk about market, but we forget or we overlook sometimes that we're talking at the end of the day about people. And so this is what these pictures are representing. It means progress, it means electrification. In the campaign, we've selected 5 winners, and outside you will, throughout the event, see a collage of the 10 finalists. So the winning pictures are from our companies, EDP Portugal, Asantis, which I've seen in the room, Off-Grid Europe, Phasen, and of course, NG Energy Access. So congratulations to the winners. Thank you. And from now, we would like to introduce the first high-level panel session. I have the honor of introducing the moderator of that first high-level session, which will be around turbocharging a clean and just energy transition through blended finance for distributed renewables. Camille André-Bataille, Vice President of ARE, please join the floor.
Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates and distinguished guests, good morning and welcome to this high-level panel. This morning, we convene to delve into a critical discourse surrounding one of the most pressing global imperatives of our industry: turbocharging a clean and just energy transition through blended finance for distributed renewable energies. As we gather here today, it's paramount to acknowledge the urgency of our mission. Despite notable progress in recent years, the reality remains stark. Hundreds of millions of people still lack access to reliable and affordable energy. The SDG 7 stands as a statement for our collective commitment towards addressing this monumental challenge. However, with less than a decade remaining to achieve these ambitious targets, we notice that current investment levels are not yet sufficient for both projects and companies. The significance of our discussion today cannot be overstated. Blended finance is a strategic combination of public, private, and philanthropic capital, and it has emerged as an important tool in driving investments toward distributed energy, particularly in underserved regions. By leveraging the complementary strengths of various stakeholders, blended finance holds the potential to unlock financing, mitigate risks, and accelerate the deployment of renewable energy solutions where they are needed the most. However, despite its promise, the full potential of blended finance remains untapped. Barriers such as regulatory hurdles, perceived risks, and market uncertainties continue to impede its widespread adoption. Moreover, the imperative for just energy transition, one that prioritizing equity, inclusivity, and social justice, further complicates our endeavors. Yet, amidst these challenges lie unparalleled opportunities. Today, we have the privilege of convening a panel of esteemed experts representing both the public and private sectors, as well as the industry association ARE, united in their dedication to advancing the cause of energy access and sustainability. Together, we will explore innovative financing mechanisms, scalable business models, and transformative policies that can catalyze a clean and just energy transition, leaving no one behind. In the spirit of collaboration and collective actions, please let us harness the power of this forum to chart a course towards a future where energy access is not just a privilege, but a fundamental human right. Our journey towards SDG 7 attainment begins here and now. So with no further ado, let's please introduce our experts. I'd like to start and invite Mrs. Baerbel Hoehn to the stage. Please come. She has many years of political experience and expertise in system-based renewable energy and now serves as special representative for decentralized energy supply at BMZ, Germany. Next to come on stage, please, Mr. Abba Aliyu, who has many years of experience in the energy sector in Nigeria and has played a key role in driving the engagement between RESCOs, distribution companies, and the states to improve national electrification, and he's now acting managing director of the Rural Electrification Agency in Nigeria. Next to come on stage, please welcome Mr. Ajibola Akindele, who is a business executive with most 25 years experience covering various industries, including power, oil and gas, financial services, and consulting. And he is now general manager of Anglophone West Africa at Schneider Electric. Then I'd like to invite Mr. Mongiza Piri, who is a seasoned business executive with over 90 years of experience, including more than a decade in leadership roles in West African countries, in key industries, including renewable energies, and he is now acting as regional director at NG Energy Access. The next to join us on stage is Mr. João Cunha. Please come. Who is an expert in climate and blended finance, fund management, private equity, and policy dialogue, and he is now the head of division for renewable energy at the African Development Bank. And last but not least, Mr. Alexis Rebinder, COO of GDS International, specialized in developing solar projects for the past 10 years, with a main focus on energy access for rural areas. And he's also the president of the board of the Alliance, and he will be representing the Alliance on this panel. Can we please give them an applause? Thank you, everyone. I will now also be sitting with the rest of the panel because I'm going to be leading this panel for the next hour or so, and I'm wearing heels, so please bear with me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yes? Perfect, thank you. So, we'll be starting with a few interviews, with each and every one of you, and there will be engaging into a moderating section of questions, and you will be also allowed to ask a few questions from the audience, so please do not hesitate to engage with us in this conversation. But I'll start with a few questions to our esteemed experts, and I'd like to start with Mrs. Baerbel, if you don't mind. I have a few questions for you. Germany is a leader and pioneer in the clean and just energy transition. Can you tell us what blended finance instruments has Germany made available to turbocharge the DOE markets? And have any of these instruments been developed together with other Team Europe entities? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Yes, first I would say thank you very much to my colleague Olowoniyi from the Ministry of Power here from Nigeria, because he mentioned the GIZ, and the GIZ is the institution that is working for us, for the German government and all over the world and the Global South. And I think most of you will know the GIZ even more than maybe the ministry I'm working for. Yes, the German government is very involved in a lot of projects, and because we think that decentralized energies are very, very important. So the IEA, for example, made a study last year from Africa, and they told that 42% of the population have access to electricity till 2030, or need access to electricity till 2030 by central grids, by national grids. But 58% of the population need access to electricity by decentralized solutions, by mini-grids and, for example, solar home systems. And that means to overcome, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially the Sustainable Development Goal 7, we need to overcome poverty, we need to overcome hunger, and we will only reach it by achieving Sustainable Development Goal 7. So, as David said, we need to reach all the people, 567 million people here in Africa who lack access to electricity. We need to bring electricity to them, to create jobs and all the other things too. Yes, and that's why the German government is very involved in a lot of decentralized projects and programs. Maybe I will mention first the programs we are supporting of the African Development Bank, and my colleague João Duarte Cunha will tell a bit more about them. For example, we are involved in the CEFA, Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, and last year we gave even more, 30 million euro to this fund, but in the whole we are the main donor there with about 190 million euro. And we are doing that with other countries from Europe, like Denmark, Spain, Italy, Norway, and Sweden. So we are very involved in these funds, and also in the FAY fund from the African Development Bank, because some years ago we gave the last money, so the FAY fund had enough money can be started. You know, so that was very important to give the last 50 million euro to the FAY fund. But beside that, the two African Development Bank funds, we have, for example, the SAY fund of the KfW. And that is very important because that's a very new fund, and I think we were interested to involve the population, you know, the European population, that the European population can give some money to the fund. So one part of this fund is we are working together with crowd lenders. That means people who are interested in crowdfunding can give their money there to this fund, and then we have private money there, we have donation, and we have a support of the local market, the local entrepreneurs. So that's a mix of different sorts of capital. And that was an idea we were developing because I think we need more support of the whole population. And that was very important for us to do this in this way. But beside all these funds, we are engaged in Get Invest. You know, Get Invest is here everywhere at the conference with a matchmaking program. And that means we need not only finance models, but we need also bankable projects. Beside finance models, we need an access to financing instruments, you know, and that means we need advice. And that's why we were interested to start with Get Invest, and that is a European program, but also Germany, Norway, and other European countries are involved in it and are giving money for that. So we have, on the one side, financing models, and on the other side we had advice models because it's not enough to have only money, you know. And maybe the last one I would like to mention, that is NDEF. NDEF is a very long-run program, and maybe a lot of people here will know NDEF because it's active in more than 20 countries. Most of them are in Africa. And we started a result-based financing model with NDEF. And that means that we were looking for donation, for private capital, but also for the local entrepreneurs. Because if you would like to be successful, we need a good maintenance. And that means the local entrepreneurs must have a benefit of all these models. So they must be interested to look for an operation model, you know. Otherwise, we would like to invest in the hardware, but at the end, maybe that some component is broken and it's not running any longer. So that means we must look for a sustainability of this project, and that's why we are looking for the operating models. That means, yes, we have a lot of mixed models. We are working together with different countries in Europe, but we must solve the problem in the whole, you know. So from the beginning, from the starting point to the operating model, so good maintenance. So at the end, we have a sustainable solution for the people, and even a big variety, because in every situation, we have different solutions.
Okay, very interesting. Would you say, for instance, that's what you mentioned are some of the lessons you learned while setting up, you know, these first mechanisms and then developing new mechanisms? Is there any other lessons that you learned or comments that you want to make and that reflect on the instruments that have worked in the past, some that haven't worked, and how you intend to bring these lessons moving forward with the new instruments?
Yes. You know, I think in some of these programs, we don't have really some years. So some of these programs we're starting. So we couldn't tell something about lessons learned, but we noticed that we have to look for different aspects. As I said, also advice, but also, for example, training. We must train the people. That is very important. If you have no experts who will make maybe the operating model, so you will not be successful. And we need, for example, as I said, good maintenance. So that's a part of the financing model. And we need a good framework from the government. For example, that means, for example, a special tariff systems, you know. If, for example, you have low tariffs in rural areas, maybe only small consumers have only to pay maybe 10 euro cent per kilowatt hour, you will not find anyone who will invest in rural areas. Or, for example, if you need for private capital, because we need private capital. We have not only the countries, we have also foundations. So if you are looking for private capital, the invested money must be safe. So that means a guarantee for maybe the next 20 years for the invested money to get this money back, you know, and that is something like a political framework you need to be successful. And you can see it in different countries in Africa. So we have some countries, they are really front runners, and other countries, they are behind, you know. And so it's good to have something like a conference like this one. So make an exchange of experience between the different countries. And we are doing that, for example, even with ARE, because we are looking for video conferences and bring actors from different countries together so they can talk about their experience, good examples, and then the people from other countries can see, oh, what do we have to change to be in the same position as the others? So learn from each other. I think that is very important.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting, and thank you for this statement about the learning between each other. I'd like to turn to the representative from the Nigerian government, Honorable Abba Aliyu. Yeah, can you, I mean, Mrs. Baerbel Hoehn has mentioned something about the political framework and the engagement of governments in countries. Can you tell us a little bit more about the perspective of the Nigerian government regarding blended finance? What are the most important challenges that you are facing with regards to blended finance instruments?
Thank you very much. The Rural Electrification Agency, REA, it's at the moment the main public sector institution in the country that is implementing the federal government policy as regards to addressing the electricity access. To date, just like the representative of the Honorable Minister mentioned, to date, the agency has succeeded in one, demonstrating the viability of projects in the renewable space. First of all, we succeeded in deploying a number of mini-grids, over 150 mini-grids, also deployment of over 1.1 million solar home systems. We also succeeded in developing different models that intervene in specific sectors of the economy. So we have models that we are implementing in agriculture, we have models implementing in health institution and educational sectors of the economy. So that is the big challenge REA faced. And our key objective is to use such models to address the electricity gap in the country. And as we all know, the electricity access gap in the country is the biggest in the country, right? So the challenge is quite enormous. So what we do to address this, it's one key aspect is to catalyze private sector investment. The federal government has realized the need to have private sector coming into this space to support the federal government in addressing this challenge. Now, what is required to incentivize the private sector, apart from creating enabling environment in terms of policy regulation, is also the fact that we need to also embark on the blended financing to help this incentivizes the private sector to come into this space. And also the representative of the minister has mentioned one of the projects, the biggest so far within the country that we implemented, the Nigerian Electrification project, a $550 million project being financed by both the World Bank and African Development Bank. So we implemented that, and by that, we have demonstrated a number of key lessons. One is the fact that the result-based financing framework can work within the system, right? So rather than just embarking on an EPC approach to address this challenge, but designing a workable model using the result-based financing, we have demonstrated that it's working. Specifically, the model of the performance-based grant, output-based fund, we have all seen how it worked and how it catalyzed the private sector to embark in investing in this space to address the electricity gap. So we have seen this aspect of it. So from our own end, one of the key things that we use the blend finance to address, one key aspect is the currency risk, right? Which is key. In the course of the implementation of the Nigerian Electrification project, we have seen the challenge developers face in accessing funding and at the same time dealing with currency mismatch. If you look at the entire value chain of the manufacturing of all the equipment needed to deploy a simple mini-grid, most of this equipment are not produced within this country. So when these developers tend to face the challenge of now having to convert Naira to dollars to import this equipment and at the same time come and get a tariff that is Naira-based. So this mismatch tends to affect them. To show you how much we have worked to address this challenge, in the course of the implementation of the NEP project, initially we used to have a grant that is Naira-based, right? So in the course based on the FX fluctuation in the country, we had to increase the grant amount to a certain level at a particular time, just in the aim to mitigate the FX changes that been faced by the developers. But even that did not address the challenge. The developers tend to continue to face this challenge to the level that we have to make a compelling case to the federal government to approve the payment of this grant and subsidy in dollars. And this is one of the greatest achievements we recorded under the Nigerian Electrification project. And the federal government approved that, and we started since, I think, October last year, started making payment of this grant and subsidy in dollars. And it's really helped significantly in some areas. Then the second aspect of things that we use the blended financing to address, it's what my other colleague mentioned in terms of making sure that there's affordability, right? Definitely the cost of deploying, also based on the fact that the deployment of this mini-grid is import dependent, the costs tend to be very high. And being the fact that it's most of the time is project finance, the payment of this, the tariff tends to augment the cost of the mini-grid. So at times the tariff tends to be very high. So through blended finance, we intend to reduce this cost and by extension reduce the tariff burden on the people that will pay for the electrons being generated by the mini-grid. Lastly, also it's to demonstrate the market. We, from REA, use the blended finance as a means to make sure that we convince not only our leaders in the public sector, but also the private sector and development partners that the market, it's there, and this market can be, it's bankable and viable. So through the blended finance, we were able to demonstrate that. And it is also in our intention that over a period of time, as we tend to crystallize the end side of the market, we will be able to crystallize investment in the manufacturing side. After the implementation of the Nigeria Electrification project, quite all right, reflecting on it, we have not achieved that as much as we want to, but we have seen some sign in which a number of OEMs coming into the country to start investing in the manufacturing because of the fact that we have crystallized the end market. So these are the key things that we intend to achieve.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very insightful. I'd like to turn to the private sector now and get some feedback. I'd like to ask Mr. Ajibola Akindele from Schneider Electric. You're a leading private sector company. What is the Schneider Electric vision for the DRE sector and your role in the same moving forward? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, I think you're right. It's not just something for either the private sector or the public sector, right? It's a collaboration of the two. Now, from a private sector perspective, I mean, again, we're Schneider Electric. I don't know how many people actually know what we do here. So I'd want to start by saying, for us at Schneider, sustainability is at the heart of everything that we do, right? From our own operations.
Be closer.
From our own operations, how we work with our suppliers, how we work with our customers, sustainability is really at the heart of everything that we do, right? And over the last 15 years, we've continued to develop solutions, that help, reduce carbon emissions, and ensure that we meet our own internal goals that we've set for ourselves. In 2022, we were actually declared the most sustainable company in the world by Private Knights. So, as I said earlier, this is our own vision. This is what we want to do, and these are our own commitments. Now, we have launched a series of products, right, that are specifically targeted to the microgrid or the DRE sector, right? And these products are very easy to deploy. We have what we call the Vilaya Flex, and we're actually going to officially launch that in Nigeria today, later at the press conference. And what this is a very small packaged microgrid solution, that you can easily scale up in quantities of 50 kilowatts, for example. So you can have 50, 100, up to 500 kilowatts, and we even have solutions for bigger, bigger requirements. The whole idea here is to focus on off-grid communities or communities where, at the end of the day, people cannot really afford, real access to the grid, right? And this is our own vision. At Schneider Electric, we believe that access to energy is a fundamental human right. It is a right that everybody should have, and everything we do is actually aimed at providing access to energy, to our suppliers. We have a program which we've called the A2E, Access to Energy Program, and the whole idea here is that we want to ensure that we provide clean, affordable, accessible energy to 50 million people by 2025. As I said, this program started 15 years ago, and we've been, launching a number of products that are targeted at off-grid, off-grid communities, people that cannot afford it. And what we actually see it as, it's actually a social business unit. So there's a bit of the business part of it, but also the CSR part of it, because we know that, when you're looking at off-grid communities, people with lower earning power, it's not always about business, right? And we've also thought of various ways to fund this, partnering with people that are very much focused on social impact investing, where the objective is not always a financial, but there's always a larger goal towards sustainability and how we can then ensure that, beyond the financial, there are other non-financial factors that we consider. So as I said, sustainability, off-grid solutions, DRE is at the heart of what we do. And over the last 15 years, we've developed a lot of products that have targeted communities that are off-grid.
Okay, so redefining the profitability of these projects and these activities, you're talking about financial profitability along with social, environmental, societal profitability. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your way to contribute as a company into as a co-investor within those projects, or are there any other way you contribute in co-investment?
Yeah, so we do co-invest. We have a number of partners based all over the world, from the French government to various arms of the French government, who also partner with us, as we, co-invest in this project. What we've also seen, and I think one of the panelists talked about that earlier, that even though, the cost of financing is gradually going down, right? I mean, the cost of the products, solar panels and all of that is going down. We still continue to see that accessing finance is still a challenge, right? Of course, some of these projects have lower internal rates of return. So it's a bit more difficult to find financing. Of course, we talked about FX risk, especially in a place like Nigeria, where the currency has been moving all over the place in the last few months. And so you still have a lot of challenges accessing finance. But I think we also still have to be creative. And some of the things that we've done in other places in the world include things around micro-leasing, right? Leasing these products or solutions it's something that we have done in other parts of the world, microfinancing. Even in some cases, we've done crowdfunding. But I think one of the most important ones has been the social impact investments that we have seen, with some of our partners who are not necessarily looking for, the financial impact. And we are not always looking after the financial impact as well. And we have solutions that are totally focused on that, which are more like social, business units that is a blend of the financial, but also the social as well.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to get a feedback from another company, another private company in the sector, very active, talking about NG Energy Access, represented by Mangisa Firi. What does NG Energy Access see the DRE sector going, and what role can blended finance play in achieving your objectives?
Thank you very much. So NG Energy Access is playing in both the solar home systems and the mini grids segment. We are in 9 markets currently. On the West Africa coast, we are in Nigeria, Benin, and Cote d'Ivoire. We are very optimistic about the DRE sector. We are very optimistic about the prospects. I mean, the numbers are big. In Nigeria alone, we are talking about 95 million people that need our products. They need to get access to our products. So we are very bullish about what we can achieve in the sector, but we are also alive to the challenges that are involved in operating in this sector. Some of the challenges, and I'm happy some of the conversations have already come up. The CapEx costs are quite high. If you're looking at deploying a mini grid, all your components are imported, well, most of them. At the same time, you're battling with currency depreciation, and that's been the case in most African countries. On the solar home system side, in the communities that we operate, most of the customers cannot afford to pay for the product outright. So you are taking on credit risk. Over 90% of your sales are on credit. So that is a risk that you are taking on. And a lot of African economies have been under a lot of pressure, both on currency, on inflation. So this means that the purchasing power of your clients is eroding. So that is further increasing your credit risks. Some of these communities, they are difficult to get to. We are getting into the rainy season in West Africa now, so it becomes harder to access some of your customers. So that is where blended finance can come in and help us mitigate some of those risks. Because ultimately we are looking at reaching all these people and ensuring that there is energy access for all. The energy transition should not leave the people that are in the rural communities behind. But the companies that are developing mini grids, that are deploying solar home systems in these communities will require the support to mitigate that risk but also to help us even go further. Because as you go further in the rural areas, it becomes even more difficult and more expensive. So that is the role that we see blended finance playing. 567 million people to reach is a huge number, but it's doable if we come together and work together, both the private sector, the public sector, and the financial side. So we're very bullish about it. We are very, very ambitious about what we can achieve, but we'll require some support in terms of blended finance to help us mitigate some of those risks that I've highlighted.
Thank you very much for your feedback and your insights. I'd like to turn now to our banker on the stage, Mr. Joao. One question for you regarding these blended finance initiatives. What exactly does AFDB in that regard, and how do you remain flexible to adapt, to this changing market and to the needs that are being expressed by both the public sector, the private sector? What role do you play?
Sure, thank you very much. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be one of the sponsors of this event and to see such a full room and see the interest that there is in the sector and in the space. Look, I'd like to preface my intervention by just understanding or unpacking a little bit why private capital is not flowing as it should be, and why we need blended finance. And I'd like to sort of focus on 2 points. I think one of them is that the decentralized renewable energy business models are not yet at a point of maturity where they can be deemed fully commercially viable. There's still sort of businesses that have low returns and are still fairly risky or high risk, I guess partly because they're solving for the problem of affordability and access. So it's really hard to drive profitability when you're really reaching out to peri-urban and rural communities where affordability is a big issue, and payment performances could also be an issue. Then there's the issue of scale, right? A lot of these businesses across the continent remain small. And with scale, you cannot drive the cost compression, you cannot drive the efficiencies, or you cannot really become more competitive and more profitable. So there is an inherent problem there that needs to be solved, which is that of, scaling up some of these businesses. And then there's one other important point around these business models, is that they're still vulnerable. And 5 years ago, we probably would say that these are robust, these are here to stay. The reality has been very sobering over the last 5 years. We've seen COVID, we've seen currency devaluations, we've seen high inflation, we've seen high rising interest rates. So there's been a number of shocks globally, but certainly in Africa. They're taking a toll, and they're really undermining viability of a lot of these businesses. So this is one of the challenges. The other challenge is the cost of capital, right? When we look at global capital flows, you see that the large majority of clean energy finance is flowing to Europe, North America, South America, Asia, and then there's a tiny fraction coming to Africa. And obviously there is an issue of risk perception, but most fundamentally is the cost of capital. So investors in Africa would expect at least 15% return, if not more. So I'd say 15 to 20%. Currently, debt for a lot of the energy access companies is going at around 10%, give or take 1 or 2%. So this is very onerous, this is very costly for energy access businesses that are still struggling to become profitable, or at best, they're still on single-digit returns. And last but not least, there is this issue of access to local currency, and I think that was mentioned already before. The bulk of the capital is still in dollars or euros, but these businesses need local currency. Local currency is best provided by local commercial banks. Local commercial banks do not have an interest in providing this kind of finance, or they don't have the tools or the capacity or the know-how. So there is also a fundamental issue to be resolved there. My last point on cost of capital or capital flows is that these have drastically, capital flows for energy access in Africa have drastically dropped in the last few years. So 2022, we were at about just over $700 million in grants, equity, and debt going into the energy access space. This has come down to about 400 million. So that's over 40% drop from one year to the next. And the biggest reduction was in terms of equity capital, which is the one that I think businesses need the most, is the equity. So clearly, blended finance is needed urgently to turbocharge, using that expression, because it can lower costs of financing. It can certainly mitigate a lot of these critical risks that I've discussed earlier, but it can also provide solutions to scale. On the African Development Bank side, I think we've heard about the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa. I would say this is currently the mother of all blended finance initiatives at the African Development Bank. This is a $500 million fund, and we are very grateful for Germany to be such a strong supporter. Through CEFA, we can provide grants, we can provide equity, we can provide debt on concessional, on flexible terms, adjusted to the needs of the businesses and of the sector, and hopefully through that, we can catalyze a lot of private capital. I'll just mention just a few programs very quickly, and you'll hear more about these programs in this event. You'll hear about the Africa Mini Grid Acceleration Program. This is a technical assistance program to work with governments in structuring the market or to design a bankable mini grid investment program, similar to what Nigeria has done with NEP. So we'd like to see more NEPs across the continent that are sort of private sector friendly, that have a smart subsidy framework to really close those viability gaps and demonstrate that path to commercial viability. On the equity side, we're aggressively investing in various energy access private equity funds. We see that there's a huge gap in the market for equity. We see that DFIs are shying away from investing in equity at the moment. We want to double down through CEFA. We're also investing in platforms. And last year, we've invested in the cross-boundary mini-grid platform, and we're very proud of that investment. It's the first of a kind mini-grid investment platform. Obviously, on the debt side, you will have heard about the Facility for Energy Inclusion, which is a debt platform providing flexible debt products of different kinds for, all sorts of energy access business models. And we have, on the local currency debt front, we are working with the GCF on this big initiative called the Leveraging Energy Access Finance Program, which is providing credit enhancement guarantees, mezzanine debt, primarily into structures and to financial institutions to really unlock more local currency flows. If you allow me on the flexibility point, I would just say that catalytic finance is inherently flexible, but institutions are not, people are not. And I'd emphasize that, a lot of the times, donors or development finance institutions, development partners, they have products, and those products may not be suitable or adaptable or the kinds of products that the market needs. I think we have to be less prescriptive. And I think that's the mindset we approach, we embrace is not being prescriptive, is listening to the market, is consulting, is understanding the needs. And the needs change from year to year, from country to country. And we need to be able to adapt and take a lot of these changes in our stride. I think one last point is that we also need to sensitize our internal ecosystems. If you are familiar with the African Development Bank, it's a big institution. We are front-facing, we're dealing with the clients, but then we have to sort of, promote and sell the investments internally. And there's credit colleagues, there's legal colleagues. They tend not to be very flexible. They don't understand the sector, they don't understand the space, and they will push back on whatever you'll try to do. So there is also that aspect of working and developing the internal know-how of the institution to really do a better job every time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, very dense. Yes, I think that the audience appreciated. There's actually a lot that you mentioned that we would probably love to talk about and jump on. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go and talk to Alexina, who is the president of ARE. But I think that we'll have just one more question for, like, you know, as a moderated debate right after Alexis has talked, and maybe we'll jump on some of the point that you mentioned, Joe. But thank you. Alexis, on your side, you're running a private sector company, but you're also the president of the board of the Alliance. And I'd like to know how you see what the ARE can do and collaborate with other stakeholders, such as the governments, the financial institutions, and the private sector to mobilize more blended finance instruments.
Yes, thank you. So I would say main word would be to say that the Alliance is the voice of the sector. As it has been underlined by all my co-member of this panel, there is many challenges to be tackled to reach the target of universal access to energy. And to do so I'll not go through all these challenges. Of course, financing is maybe the main of it. But to do it, we need to have a strong association of this for the sector, and we do. And we need to have one voice to first, all together as a strong network, discuss, to have in the same network. Today we are 200 members in the association and growing. And in the same association, you have institutions, you have financiers, you have developers, you have technology providers, you have small company, big company, and we need to have all these people together to discuss and to find new ways, innovative ways to move forward and to go faster. Because if we go at the same pace, as it has been said, we will not reach the target by 2030 of a universal energy access. So this is the main idea of ARE. Why we exist is to be the voice of the sector and to support the global clean and just transition to green economies. One of main example of it is our role, the role we are playing within the Global Gateway Business Advisory Group within the EU, which will shape and which will help shape and help bring more investment in the sector through the Global Gateway initiative. I will add to that we, of course, are working with many other institutions, with Get Invest, who is supporting this event, with German institution, with French, with African, Nigerian, many, with one key objective, one key target, to turbocharge the investment for electrification, for rural electrification, and I would say for electrification in a global way, because we know that there is a lot of people who have no access to electricity, but there is even more who have a bad access, a weak access to electricity, and we need to target not only the rural electrification, but the entire sector, and that's what we try to do by gathering all together, as I said, financiers, developers, SHS providers, mini-grids, and so on.
Thank you very much. And so I understand that this means, and especially the last part, that we're actually talking about energy access, but also energy transition, because we are not only targeting rural areas or people not having access at all to electricity, but also people relying on the grid or on solutions that are not reliable, self-sustainable on the long term. And that was very important to emphasize. I'd like now to go back and to ask maybe the representatives of the private sector, and also Mr. Joao from the AFDB, because you made some very clever points in your speech. But I'd like to ask, we're talking a lot about blended finance, that's the topic of this panel, but would you say that this is more made for project funding, or do you say that there's also solutions for corporations, for companies themselves? Because there's a way of funding energy access and energy transition through the project. And blended finance has made itself quite an interesting tool that we need to unlock its potential, 1,000%. But what would you say for the companies? Like, do you receive, as private sector companies, the support and the financial support you need? Or is there something that needs to be done on that side? And from the financial institution, is there consideration for supporting the companies themselves to thrive? Because without companies, there's no project, basically. So I don't know who wants to start. That's an opening conversation now. Maybe private sector. Oh, Baerbel, you want to start? Please go ahead.
You know, I think we have all the solutions on the table, but it's a bit complicated because in different regions we need different solutions. So we must learn from each other, and I think this conference is very important because we can make an exchange of information. It's not the problem that we have. I think we have enough money on the table, and I think we have enough business models on the table, but we need the information to link all this together, you know, and that's what Get Invest is doing. So this matchmaking, that means to bring people together, the one who have maybe the money, the other who would like to start with a project, and to make an exchange of experience, because we are learning, the government, the ministry is learning from our programs, you know, so because they are telling what is going around on the ground, you know, so they have the information of the people in the countries, they have the information of the problems, they have the information of the problems on the ground. And we have, in this moment, in this year, we have really the problem that the customers in Africa don't have enough money, often don't have enough money for small solar home systems, because they have less money because of the pandemic, COVID-19. They have less money because energy prices were increasing because of the war in Ukraine. And so a lot of companies now who are involved in this market, they are bankrupt in the last months. And we see that a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience is going away, you know. And that means that we must look for a guarantee for debt capital, or a guarantee for this very, very good, and a lot of good companies on the ground, that they can work and overcome this crisis, you know. Otherwise, we will lose a lot of knowledge. So I would say this conference is very important, and it tells us, and last example, it tells us that even the access to very small, I would say low-tier solutions are very helpful. And one example is that a friend of mine gave a very small solar lamp to his friend in Africa. And he was a person living in a big city, had enough light and everything, you know, so he didn't need this small light. So he gave it to the person who made the housekeeping for him. And after 4 weeks, he asked her, could you use this small light? And she said, yes, wonderful, I doubled my income. And he said, you doubled your income? How did you do it? And she said, I have a very small shop at the road, and now I have a light. I can open my shop for a longer time, and the customers are coming and selling all the goods from my shop, you know? So we have a big impact to overcome poverty and hunger with really small solutions. And that is one of the main results of this conference.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Akindele, I see you reacting. So what were you reacting to the fact that money is on the table and basically we can do whatever we want, but what are the obstacles? Why isn't it moving?
Yeah, I think one of the panelists said it earlier. It's not just enough to have money. money is not enough. There's a lot of expertise that is lacking. There's still a lot of tools that are not available. To answer your earlier question, the reality is that, yes, those of us in the private sector, for us as Schneider Electric, we're technology providers, we're an OEM. So we have the available technology. Yes, we do have experiences in other parts of the world, but those experiences could be very different from the experiences we find on ground in Nigeria. So for me, it's a collaborative effort. We need to have all the stakeholders coming together to participate. Stakeholders in the financial services sector or the banks, advisors, the developers, government agencies and various arms of government. Because yes, there is money available, and I always hear that there is money available, but we're still not seeing a lot of projects because as one of the panelists said, that the projects are usually not bankable, right? There's still lots of risks around, we talked about currency, the rates of return, so there's still a lot of hurdles that needs to be crossed. So for us, it's still a very challenging environment. We try to partner with people, who are experts in various areas, and what we try to do is to bring a collaboration of various stakeholders who are experts in various areas, and let's see how we can, make this projects turn into reality. But yes, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, and there's still a lot of hurdles that needs to be crossed.
Thank you. You want to answer as well, Mr. Fury?
I can give the company view as well. I think there's more that we can do to link the available financing with the company, because at the end of the day, the company takes on quite a bit of risk. The employees are on the company's payroll, and it's right that a number of companies have gone down, especially the last 2 years, or let's just say from the time of COVID. I think one of the key challenges is the time it also takes to link the financing and the company. One of the quickest reactions that I've concretely seen during my time in this sector was with Beyond the Grid Fund in Zambia. Right in the middle of COVID, they reached out to all the players that they were supporting on that program to discuss what further support could be given in the wake of COVID. So that was very quick and reactive. Now that kind of reaction to get support to the company, whether it's technical or it's financial, is not always quick. So I think there's room to do better in terms of linking the financiers or the government with the companies to deal with specific challenges that we pick up. But I think the opportunity is there, and it will just require much more closer collaboration between the company and the public sector.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Mr. Aliou, do you want to add something from the government's perspective, very briefly, because the panel is almost at its end, but if you have something to say regarding the facilitation that the government can bring to the sector in order for these blended finance mechanisms and for the private sector to do the job.
So from the government perspective, we believe that the private sector need to do more, need to take more risk. The federal government is doing everything to de-risk the sector. So we talked about the regulation policy. We talked about even to the extent of addressing the FX finance. We are even going further to the level of ring-fencing grant agreement so that we create some level of certainty to the developers whenever they sign any grant agreement with the federal government. But we believe that also the private sector need to take more risks. They need to scale up in their own ambition. One, they also need to look internally to address some inherent factors that we see. For example, looking at the data, we realize that most of these developers, their operational costs tend to be consistent, or in some instances even getting up. And by the rule of the economics of scale, over a period of time, as you are deploying more, your operational cost needs to come down. So what innovation, what internal things the developers are doing to reduce their operational costs? So that is something. Then secondly, also, we believe that the private sector need to do more in terms of demand stimulation. We have seen that the demand stimulation from the private sector is more as an deployment of bit and pieces of protective equipment over in areas. But based on our analysis and data, demand stimulation is a deeply business concept that private sector need to really embark on and really engage and deploy within their as a business concept. It's not necessarily that the developers have to secure this equipment, but in terms of partnering with providers of this key demand stimulation equipment and deploy within this area is something that is there. I would like to just quickly share a study that was done by students of Columbia. We invited them and they went to one of our sites where we deployed a mini grid. And from their analysis, within the area, they have seen a potential of over 20 billion naira e-mobility potential within that particular area. And this is something that is oblivious to the developer that deployed this mini grid. So government can't continue to do the thinking, business thinking for the developers. We really want the developers to also take demand stimulation as a business concept and imbibe it within their business. Then lastly is also for this, more especially the local developers, to really up their games, enhance their corporate governance, and become more as a sustainable companies rather than interventionists. We want them to be rescuers over a period of time, to be renewable energy service providers that can complement the distribution companies. And we are, from the government side, providing them with all this. Apart from the blended financing, we want to influence the government policy to increase the mini grid cap from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatt. We want to use minimum subsidy tender approach to auction more than 30, 10, 20 megawatt at once. So unless this private sector really enhance their internal structure as well, they may end up missing these opportunities. So from our own perspective, private sector take more risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope the private sector was taking notes. The message was very clear. Thank you very much. Any last word before we wrap up the session from Alexis and Joao? Yeah, Joao, and maybe I'll finish with Alexis.
just 2 quick points, piggybacking on this very good intervention. Yeah, it's okay, grants can take you so far, but as a business, it's important that you become profitable, that you continue working on optimizing your unit economics, your operational efficiencies, and you move towards scale. We are channeling a lot of funding through various programs, through various investment funds, especially the investment funds. They will not invest into businesses that are not commercially viable. So you have to do that homework to really push your business to go towards profitability. And we know various businesses operating in very challenging markets, like in the Sahel, that are commercially viable without any subsidies. They've cracked the code. They found a way of operating in a very lean and mean way to deliver products to rural communities, without subsidy. And I tell you, these guys are oversubscribed. When they try to raise money, everyone is like knocking on their doors to give them money, right? So I think that's a very important lesson. I think the other one is speak with one voice. It's for the entire sort of a business community to engage effectively with governments and with financiers, but speak with one voice. And I think the role of ARE is fundamental there. And I'm looking at David. This is a very important mandate for you to ensure that the needs of the private sector are clearly sort of communicated and the messages are very crisp, because you don't want to have sort of different businesses saying different things at different times to governments and confusing the market. I think it's important that the industry comes together and speaks clearly with one voice. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for underlying the work of the Alliance. maybe to close this session, I will just take the word of everybody here. We need to do more as an association, as a sector. We need to do more. We need to have more exchange, more discussions. This event is here for that. But we need to do more to have more members. We have a financial circle. If you are financial and you are not part of it, please join. We have supporting, for example, a core initiative in the training sector. We also need to do more on this part. I think this is the main message here. As a sector, as a whole, we need to do more, to do it on a better way to reach scale.
Thank you, everyone. A round of applause. Thank you for all of our esteemed experts in this conversation. Unfortunately, I know you're all sad, but this is the end of this panel. But this is only the starting point of the event. So we have 3 days full of panels, discussions, matchmaking sessions. And I think that, yeah, the CEO of ARE is now going to introduce the next step. And I would ask, please, to all of our panelists to remain on stage for the message of David.
Well, the message of David is household related. So the next steps, thank you very much, by the way, dear panel, for your contributions, first of all. And thank you to government for welcoming us. The next rollout of the morning, what will happen? So we will, together with the panel, go a bit like ducklings to the exhibition to formally open the exhibition. So you are most welcome to join us. It's 95% ready, so it's a good time. And after that, we will have a press conference, and then there is, in parallel, a coffee break. So for you, dear audience, if you want, please follow us into the exhibition. If you want to go rather later, when it's less crowded, you can have a coffee break. When you come back, there will be 2 sessions, one in this room on rolling out green transition investment through data collection and electrification planning. And there will be a second session downstairs, so just stairs to down in the Fantasia, which will be around multiplying debt financing instruments for projects and businesses. So at your leisure. So, and if I can now invite the panel to on fait une photo après, to follow me into the exhibition. Thank you.